Hi, it's Char, and wanted to share with you what is the #1 defense against narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, any of those cluster B personalities. It is a really easy word to share with you, but it's a very complicated lifelong process, and it's boundaries. I know from coming from a childhood where my mother was a narcissist, there weren't any boundaries allowed. I mean, she had full access to anything and everything at all times. There was no privacy. She could come in, she could read our diaries, she could go through our stuff. I mean, I have memories of, there was no respect for me being a different person. Or it would be one thing if there were reasons to go and check, or if I was giving her, hey, I wasn't at school, I was tardy, but there was just no boundaries at all growing up. So when I launched into adulthood, I thought I had boundaries, and boundaries aren't don't smoke around me. I mean, that is a boundary, that could be a boundary, but as far as when you're looking at a relationship, you need a little bit deeper boundaries. And in order to establish your boundaries, or safe boundaries, you've got to get to know yourself. And you have to have these in place beforehand. You can't put them in place once you meet somebody, because that's very confusing. It's kind of like calling the people to come and put up a fence in your yard, but you have no clue where your yard begins or ends. And so when you're able to get yourself to a place where you understand what your boundaries are, what your limits are. I know boundaries are kind of like guidelines and rules or limits that you're going to allow other people to treat you. And there's different tiers of boundaries. I mean, for a complete stranger to come up and reach into your purse and get your wallet out, that's probably not a boundary you're going to allow. But if it was your child, you would. And so having a clear understanding of what your boundaries are it's the key point of getting into a healthier mindset and getting into healthy relationships. And so in order to get healthy boundaries, you need to make sure that you're practicing very good self-care and self-respect. So if you already catch bad conversations with yourself, and when you mess up, you're labeling yourself, you're already not having good conversations with yourself, you need to start there, where you fall back in love with you and you realize that you are different from everyone else. And there might be moments where on a stressful day you might be short with somebody or you're snapping at them, but allow yourself some grace and maybe even look back over your day and find out ways that you wouldn't react that way. And so doing the self-care and gaining the self-respect, you're going to have a better understanding of where people will qualify and where you're going to allow them to fall into place. I've always used the galaxy kind of as a good analogy, where if you're the sun, there are some people that you let be Mars right next to you, and then there's some people you throw way out there to be Pluto or even after Pluto, and they will place themselves in your life. It's very hard, no matter how much you like Pluto, to make Pluto right next to you. And that's what I think in my earlier years I had done, is where I would meet people who I should probably keep very far away from me, but I always thought it's not my responsibility to judge somebody, because it's not, but it is my responsibility to value myself enough to not allow somebody to walk into my world and destroy everything that I've worked so hard to create. And so having those strong boundaries in place, and if you're not sure about somebody, you just wait, you just take your time, because actions speak louder than words. It's really, really hard, especially in front of a narcissist or a sociopath. They're very charming people, and psychopaths. I mean, when you think about those titles, they're not walking around with labels on or signs above their head. Ted Bundy, for instance, I mean, he was very charming. He didn't have to necessarily trick these women to get them in his car. He was very charming and charismatic. And so narcissists, those cluster B personalities, are incredibly charming, very friendly, and to stand the test over time on where they go in your galaxy is time. Because it takes a lot of effort to pretend to be something you're not. And while they might do it really good at the beginning, after some time, if they see that they're still having to work so hard and there's an easier person, they'll just move on. And so when you're able to establish safe boundaries, and if you're not sure where somebody goes, just slow down the process. Then you're able to have better communication in relationships. This is friendships, business, casual acquaintance, because you're going to know exactly when you have that self-care and self-respect, you're not going to let just anybody move in and devalue you to start with, but also move into all the hard work that you've done. And then with that, when you get into relationships, you're going to start putting healthy boundaries in place. And you know, there's a lot of different types of boundaries. There's physical boundaries, emotional, intellectual boundaries, and then there's also barriers that happen, you know, in those relationships that are really, really important to you. If you see that maybe you didn't handle a situation right, give it a little time, reflect back, take accountability, and you'll be able to go back and have a conversation with that person that's not a blaming conversation, but an understanding conversation of maybe where the miscommunication was. You can't typically have these conversations with narcissists because what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to just blame you the whole time. They won't take any accountability for it. And that's a pretty good sign right there. If they can't have a conversation or take ownership of a relationship, because a relationship or it's always it's a two-way street. And while there might be moments that you didn't perform at your best, there might have been something there that triggered that. And so through communication, you say, hey, listen, when you had said this, you probably didn't mean this, but this is what it triggered in me, and they should be able to do the same for you. And so just know that in order to protect yourself from narcissists, you need to have healthy boundaries in place. And if you have never really taken a look at that, I would encourage you to go start Googling it, watching some videos. I know I had to start with, was very codependent, started there and started realizing that my identity was heavily identified with what others thought. And when you're able to just stop that and kind of gain value of who you are, you'll be able to start putting boundaries up. So you guys know what? I know that we are all powerful, and you are so powerful watching this right now. If you have not been told that today, I'm here to tell you right now. And I can't think of a better thing to work on than yourself. Because when you start there, you're going to be able to just go change the world, because we're all powerful and we're all connected. And I hope that you're feeling the love and my message today so that you can turn around and go love somebody else. Talk to you next time. Bye.